Hello guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about a load of New York Rangers trade rumors and news involving the likes of Henrik Lundqvist, Tony DeAngelo, Ryan Strome, and prospect Vitali Kravtsov. Now, over the past couple of days we've seen a lot of new rumors and a lot of different news come out, and I just want to make a single video about it to talk about it all right now and right here. So, what are the latest trade rumors involving the New York Rangers, and what is the next move that the Rangers do make? Watch till the end for all the trade rumors and all the news, and of course, hit that big red subscribe button alongside the like button for more videos just like this one. Now, the first bit of trade rumors and news that came out over the last couple of days has been about Henrik Lundqvist, and this is a really weird situation. Nothing is set in stone, but from what we've heard recently, it seems like Henrik Lundqvist said goodbye to the New York Rangers teammates after they were defeated by the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, this news comes from teammate Libor Hajek himself. In a Czech newspaper, iSport, he said this in quotes. It was very sad regarding what Lundqvist had to go through, and then said this. After the last match with Carolina, he said goodbye, saying it was his last match. He said he didn't know what would happen to him if the Rangers bought him out or went somewhere else. It was hard for him. He's a great player, the best hockey player in terms of approach, training, and humanity that I have ever met. Now, not too surprising the last part of that because Hank is an absolute GOAT, but what's most interesting about the quote is that, again, he said goodbye to the New York Rangers teammates, basically insinuating that he knows what is coming, which is pretty much the inevitable. Personally, if I was Rangers, it doesn't seem like you're going to be able to get rid of Henrik Lundqvist. I feel like if the Rangers could trade for Lundqvist and actually get something sizable back, they would have already done it. And it seems like with the goalie market being just so crowded, I mean, guys like Darcy Kemper out there is just ridiculous. It seems like Henrik Lundqvist, especially at his $7 million plus cap hit, will be super hard to move unless New York gives a sweetener or something, which I don't know if they'll be able to do. So at this rate, it seems like Hajek said, maybe a buyout could be coming. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with Lundqvist, but it seems like him being a Ranger next season, especially after he said goodbye, is looking less and less likely to actually be with the team. Imagine if he said goodbye to the team after the Canes loss and then is somehow back there next season. Not the greatest situation, kind of awkward. So I see him either being bought out, traded. I don't see him with the team personally next season, and I see the Rangers personally moving on. Now, there's a couple of big things I take away from this. One, Libor Hajek saying he said goodbye, but also saying it was his last match, so it wasn't like a figuratively thing. He actually said goodbye and said it would be his last game with the Rangers. And the other thing I take away from it is that Henrik Lundqvist expects to be off the Rangers this offseason, and it seemed like he saw it coming, so he said goodbye. I mean, if he was really convinced that he would be back at the Rangers, there was no way he would say to his teammates that it would be the last game he would ever play with that Game 3 versus the Carolina Hurricanes. I just don't see that happening. So either the Rangers management just let him know that this is it, or that he just has a great idea because of it, and it seems like, again, more likely that it will be the case that he's either bought out or traded. Personally, again, I would love to keep him if I could. I'm not the Rangers, though, and that cap hit is still pretty egregious at this point, and the Rangers will probably have to do, by all means, anything to get that off the books. But again, he expected this to come. So that kind of gives me a little bit of hope, because the last thing I want to happen is for Henrik Lundqvist to have like a sour view of the Rangers like Shane Doan did with the Coyotes when he had to retire with them and all that crazy stuff. It seems like Henrik Lundqvist knows what's coming. He's fine with it and that he's expecting it, which is a good thing, I think, for the Rangers, because that means you can kind of get out of that relationship a little bit easier. Maybe it's like when your girlfriend knows that you're trying to break up with her and then you do it, and it's like, okay, you can move on. It's kind of like this, and with Henrik Lundqvist, I'm just hoping that both parties can go their separate ways, that hopefully the Rangers can get as much cap off the books there too. Trade would be probably the way I could go if I could do it, but at this point, again, with the goalie market being the way it is, a buyout, to be honest, is the most likely thing here. Now going on to the next situation, don't worry, I think this will actually result in a trade this time. This one regarding Tony DeAngelo and his contract talks with the New York Rangers. Now, Tony DeAngelo has been in rumors for a while now, a few months at the very least. He is an RFA this year, age 24, and when we're looking at the total value of Rangers players, this is probably the most value that Tony DeAngelo will ever have if we're looking at career projections and what he's likely going to be in the next few seasons. But when it comes to contract negotiations with the Rangers, we have heard that it's gone a little bit sour. Now this, from the most part, comes from Larry Brooks, so take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. He's either completely spot on or just all over the place, it looks like, but I would give him a little bit of credit here because he has talked about this a lot too and at length. But when it comes to the negotiations, it's been reported that New York doesn't want to give him a long-term deal. DeAngelo camp is looking at more 3, 4 years, 5 years if they can out of an RFA deal, and New York just does not want to give that type of long-term deal. Now, Larry Brooks said that this was because of Nils Lundqvist. I like Nils Lundqvist, but still, I'm not sure if you trade out like the 4th highest scoring defenseman or whatever it was because of a prospect. Even though Lundqvist I think is awesome, I'm not sure he's quite there yet. But in a DeAngelo camp, I don't know if it's more about Lundqvist. I think it's more just about the cap space that New York has. I mean, when we look at DeAngelo, still 24, so I think he has quite a bit of hockey left in him. But at the same time, if you're giving a long-term deal, especially with New York, you got to be a little bit careful because of all the younger players that they will eventually have to sign. And even though I think DeAngelo is a solid player, especially offensively, provided a lot of value, New York doesn't really need him. They need more defensively styled defensemen, and Tony DeAngelo is just a liability in his own zone, as we saw especially in that Carolina series. So I wouldn't be opposed to trading Tony DeAngelo. If you can keep him, I think New York would want to keep him, but I think Tony DeAngelo and his camp are looking at probably around 6.5, 7 million at least, and again, a long-term deal, which they gave to Jacob Trouba last year. It hasn't worked out so far, so I think they're a little bit hesitant this time around. But with Tony DeAngelo, I think it's one of the trade pieces out there, especially RFA-wise, that could actually give New York what they need. Maybe a decent defenseman back to put as like a 6 or 5 guy, but you could also get a second line center, I think, from a DeAngelo camp. Maybe if you get, like as we saw, like Eric Stahl, all it took was Marcus Johansson, and maybe that's not the market president or anything, maybe that's not actually how it is, but if you could get an Eric Stahl for a Marcus Johansson, then I think they'll be able to find a Tony DeAngelo trade. The one I was kind of thinking about that would be interesting is Paul Stastny from the Vegas Golden Knights. Maybe you send Tony DeAngelo back to Vegas. I think Vegas would have to put in a couple sweeteners there potentially, because they do want to get rid of that cap hit, and we have seen that already purported. So I think a trade like that could definitely work, but if Tony DeAngelo is the main piece there, I think you get a serviceable second line center back. Depends on what happens, but Tony DeAngelo I think has a lot of value, and if New York trades him to get a second line center, I would be pretty not opposed to that. Not gonna lie, I would like that quite a bit. Now, I don't even know how I've gone this whole video without even mentioning him once, but we need to talk about Ryan Strome and his contract negotiations as well. Now, another RFA in his mid-20s, this time having a career year with Artemi Panarin, and it seems like contract negotiations are actually going quite well. Now, this mostly comes from Luke Fox from Sportsnet. He iterates what guys like Larry Brooks have said, that it seems like with Ryan Strome, New York and that Ryan Strome party are looking at a short-term deal. And a trade might end up happening if they find a second-line center, but it seems like negotiations are going well enough to where they can land on something and still come under the cap. So, when it comes to New York and what Ryan Strome are looking for, it's been reiterated by Luke Fox that they are looking mostly at a 1-year deal. Maybe 2, but short-term 1-year deal probably is most likely here. And I feel like that could actually benefit both parties involved. I'm not sure about you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. But I feel like with Ryan Strome, he had a career year for Artemi Panarin, and personally, I'm not convinced that he's the second-line center that New York needs. I feel like he's more of a third-line center who can provide offensively, but I think just had his career year and is going to be regressing a little bit now over the next couple. But if he signs a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal, and he replicates it again next season, then you might have a little bit more of contracts on your books. And again, this year is a weird year when it comes to money. Teams don't want to give too much around. So I feel like guys, especially like Ryan Strome, who are most likely to get prove-it deals without the cap not moving, are going to get prove-it deals. And I feel like Ryan Strome, if he replicates it next season, could get that big payday that he's looking for. And at the same time, for the New York Rangers also, again, you want to stay as low under the cap as possible, and a 1-year deal just makes sense for them. You don't commit long-term to a guy that might not be your second-line center, and I feel like if you can get him for a 1-year deal, no matter even what the money might be, that would be perfect. Then you could go on and get a second-line center, provide some cap space still there on that team, but you don't have to commit long-term to Ryan Strome and just sign that and be hasty right off the books. So, good move right now by Jeff Gorton to not sign him to that long-term deal. Famous last words, but if it is a 1-year deal, I think it would be good for both parties, and at that point, I don't think a trade would happen. At least for Ryan Strome. They might trade for a second-line center, but a Strome trade might have to wait. Now, the last bit of news I want to talk about here today is surrounding Vitali Kravtsov, and no, he's not getting traded. This is just about how he is performing this year and the newsworthy season he's having so far. Vitali Kravtsov, of course, 20-year-old Russian prospect, left winger at this point in the KHL, who was drafted 9th overall in 2018. I'm still a pretty big fan of him, but there's been a lot of people in New York that see, or at least in the New York fan base, that seem to have given up on him due to his season in 2020, which at some points was just kind of weird playing in the AHL. He didn't really seem to fit in the organization at that point, and there was some rumblings that there were some bad feelings on both sides, but it seems like with Kravtsov back in Russia, back in the KHL, that he is starting to find his groove again and might be ready for New York sooner or later. So far in the KHL, in 5 games, he has 3 goals and 3 points. I mean, when we look back on the 2018-2019 season, which was great for him in the KHL, he got 8 goals in 50 games. So far, he is on track to absolutely smash that, and at 20 years old, to have that goal rate is pretty amazing. And so far, he's backing it up also with the chances. He's right now 3rd in KHL shots per game, at least with skaters above or having 3 games played so far, with 4.6 shots per game, which is pretty great, again, for a 5-game span, and being 20 years old and already having that much of an impact, having the goals, but also the shots to back it up. It is pretty promising. We'll see what happens with Kravtsov, but so far, a pretty great season. I'm hoping it continues. The goals so far, especially that 3rd one, was an absolute snipe, and I'm hoping he continues to absolutely dominate, because that's how it's been so far. Again, very promising, 20 years old to be able to do that so far. Hoping it continues. We could maybe see him maybe called up from the Rangers after the KHL season is done, if the Rangers are in a playoff spot in the 2021 season, but I think Kravtsov finding his groove again in Russia is seriously important. Continuing to develop there is key, and again, give him some patience. He's still 20 years old, still a kid, and now pretty great in the KHL so far. So, great news for the Rangers, and they definitely do need it right now. But that's going to end today's video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it and are having a great day. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're new. Make sure you comment down below your thoughts on the whole trade rumors today. What do you want to see happen? What do you think will happen? And who do you see being traded? Do you see Lundqvist being traded? DeAngelo being traded? Strome? Let me know, what moves do you think New York will make? Of course, hit the notification bell as well for all the updates on all the videos coming out in streams. Share this video with your friends, get it out there, and click on this card right here to watch all of my NHL playoff talk right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. I love y'all faces, and I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Have a good one. Goodbye.